chapter 13, beginning with verse 24. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from? And he answered, An enemy has done this. The slave said to him, Hey, do you want us to go and gather them? And he replied, No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, Collect the weeds first, and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.
What we shall be is a mystery. But in the midst of this mystery is the God who loves us. Now by mystery, I mean the strangeness of life. What we shall be is a mystery, but from my perspective, what I am is already a mystery. I mean, I say, oh, well, I'd like to take a few inches off my waist, but I continue eating way too much. Or I say, oh, I'd like to get a good night's sleep, but I stay up way too late reading and playing games on my iPad. I do lots of things that I don't understand why I do them. Now, if you happen to live with somebody or you know someone well, they may even do things that you don't fully understand or fully comprehend. I know with my children, they would do something that I really didn't understand, and so I would ask them that wonderful question. Why? Why did you do that? We can't answer the question. We don't know why. We just do things. Even if we try to go back and say, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, we cannot go far enough back to say, well, something in my brain fired that set off a neuron somewhere. And no. Besides that, there's more mystery than that. Why is light both a particle and a wave? I don't know, but it is. It's a mystery. But not only is life a mystery, God is a mystery. We hear these stories, parables. And Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is light. The kingdom of God is life. God's way of love, living in God's way of love, is light. And then we have to try to understand, what is he saying? Today's parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a person went out and planted wheat. They went to sleep, and in the night, an enemy came and sowed seeds of weeds. Boy, seeds of weeds. Try to say that quickly. And so weed seed. And when the grain grew up and it began to head out, the servants came to the man who planted the wheat and said, didn't you plant good seed? Where did all these weeds come from? And he said, an enemy has done this. And they said, well, we can help you out here. Now, probably they were talking about broadcast planting of wheat. The land was prepared, but they probably just threw the seed out to let it grow, not the nice neat rows that our farmers put the wheat in now. And so if you just threw weed seed out there, it'd all come up together. It was probably darnel or cheat, and it came up and looked similar until it headed out, and then you could tell the difference. And the servant said, hey, we can help you out. Shall we go pull up the weeds? And he said, no. Let them both grow together. Then when the harvest comes, we'll keep the good. And the rest will bundle up and burn. Let anyone with ears to hear, hear. What does this parable mean? How does this parable tell us about God's kingdom? I think it's kind of a mystery. Now, if you have it all figured out, please tell me on your way out, okay? Because I don't. I mean, it's somewhat strange. You have good wheat growing, you have weeds growing. I read lots of sermons on this, lots of sermons, and most of them lead toward, well, you need to be the good wheat. Don't be weeds. I'm a weed, by the way. Don't be weeds and grow up and be bad, because God's going to take care of all those bad weeds. But the difficulty is, somebody planted the weeds. They didn't have a choice. They had to be weeds. And besides that, what makes a weed a weed? How do we decide dandelions are no good? Why do we say we don't want a yard full of dandelions? By the way, a lot of you have great tomatoes. You've homegrown them. Guess what? They used to be a weed. Not only were they a weed, they were considered to be a poisonous plant. You couldn't eat tomatoes. They were poison. Everybody knew that. Some of the commentators say that cheatgrass or darnel is poisonous. Well, the grain is probably not poisonous, but it does tend to attract a certain kind of fungus, and that is poisonous. So what does this parable mean? How are we going to understand this? I imagine you've all seen these before, but sometimes it's kind of fun to look again. What's this? What? It's what? A beautiful lady. With a feather in her hat? And it's a what? Really? Which is it? What? Young or old? Young? Oh, well, I'm seeing an older woman here. Well, what about this one? That's a beautiful young woman with streakers coming down the back of her hair, isn't it? What about this one? I think it's a chalice. Okay, since we're having communion. Yeah. But are you sure it's not two people facing each other? Well, which is it? Both? But it can only be one or the other, can it? Well, how do we understand the mysteries of life, and especially how do we understand God's way of love? Jesus wanted to help us out by telling us parables. Parable is from the Greek parabolin, a combination of two words. Para, a preposition meaning parallel or alongside. Bole, from the Greek verb bolo, meaning to throw or hurl. And so a parable is a throwing or hurling alongside. It's a little bit like dropping a water balloon in the middle of a formal party. Oh! What's that? That's what they're designed to do. To make us jump back and say, what? The kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, the realm of God's love is like, what? But I think we tend to resist that. I think we want to say, surely this parable can help us figure out how to live. And most of us would really like to be able to sort this parable out and say, well, obviously, it's about good grain and weeds, and we need to get rid of the weeds. Now, if you haven't paid attention to the news, that's what a lot of people think. That there are good people, good grain like us. And those other folks, they're weeds. And we ought to get rid of them. It doesn't matter which side you stand on, which side of the discussion you're on. Statue of Robert E. Lee, should that statue be left where it is or moved? It doesn't matter which side of the discussion you're on. More than likely, we tend to look at folks who disagree with us and say, oh, simple. We're right, they're wrong, let's get rid of them. By the way, the Greek word for enemy in this parable, it probably comes from the Greek word ethnos, which means other. And other has done this. What about our own lives? I don't know about you, but my life is, my being, my presence is full of both grain and weeds. Sometimes I feel like it's mostly a big field of weeds. I mean, this morning, I thanked everybody for the garage sale. Made a big deal out of appreciating people like Larry Dutton and all the folks who work hard. But I neglected to mention all the ladies who worked in the kitchen. Judy Nelson, Rosemary Templin, all you other ladies who worked in the kitchen, totally ignored them. Yeah, I'm a weed. There are a lot of stuff I'd like to get rid of in me. Maybe I would just pull those weeds out. My problem is, if I pulled all the weeds out of my life, there wouldn't be much left. Maybe a little toe somewhere. How are we going to manage our lives? Parable says, let them both grow up together. And in the end, they'll all get sorted out. And we say, oh, goody. All those lousy people, they're going to get theirs. And, of course, all those other people, they're people that aren't us. I mean, but let's just be clear about that. There's us and them. And they are the ones who are going to get it. Parable. Hurl alongside. Toss a water balloon in the middle of a formal party. How does that work? Nothing wrong with a water balloon. I know that. I got blasted with several this week during Kids' Day Out. I was sopping wet. Fun. But at a formal party, you're in your gown, you're in your tux, splat comes a water balloon. We're not going to like that. So, we have to be careful. Jesus led the crowds, went into the house, and his disciples approached him, saying, explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field. He answered, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man, the field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Jesus told the crowd all these things in parables. Without a parable, he told them nothing. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through the prophet. I will open my mouth to speak in parables. I will proclaim what has been hidden from the foundation of the world. Oh, here's the rest of the parable. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun into the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen. Jesus taught in parables, stories, using common everyday things, offered to help us rethink how God works. What are we supposed to do about evil? Our tendency is to say, let's get black and white here and root out all the bad. First of all, we have to be very clear on what good and bad is. And sometimes I'm not real sure. And I think if we had a discussion, we would probably end up saying, well, there are about, 400 or 500 different understandings of what good and bad represented right here. So how do we make that distinction? How do we allow both to grow up? How do we perceive this? We're supposed to just put up with evil and say, well, if somebody wants to nuke us, just forget about it. Let them do it. We don't have to do anything. Go ahead. One key in the parable that I see is that the servants noticed the weeds and called them out to the attention of the owner. So we don't just let things go. If somebody is being hurtful towards somebody else, we're supposed to notice. We're supposed to say something. But how we respond to them is extremely difficult. Walter Wink, in his books on the powers, says, whenever we encounter evil, we as followers of Christ must be careful not to resort to evil to overcome evil. In other words, we function out of love. But then we have to decide, what does it mean to be loving? We've got another clue here. It doesn't mean trying to get rid of the weeds. Actually, the word in the story where the landowner says, let them both grow together, the word is really forgive, allow them both to grow together. Forgive, allow them both to grow together. But what about Jesus' interpretation of the parable? All causes of sin and evildoers, and he will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Jesus taught in parables. How do we know this is not another parable? After all, is that two people are jealous? After all, Jesus was a weed. Now, we don't think that. Oh, Jesus, our Savior and Lord. But according to the people of Jesus' day, he was a weed. And he needed to be gotten rid of. And so he was cast out, bundled up, put on a cross, thrown into the fire. And yet, through that process, God raised him from the dead and gave him life, and us as well. So how do we respond to the weeds among us? And we let them grow together. We hope that perhaps some way we might be able to trust in God's love no matter what. What we shall be is a mystery. But in the midst of the mystery is God who loves us. I think that's where we have to go. Back to God. Back to the God of love. And trust God's love. No matter how weedy our lives get. Oh, we don't want it to be that way. We only want nice, clean fields with lots of good grain. there are a lot of weeds, including right in here. Besides, what do you do with wheat? Well, you grind it up, make flour, then you put the flour with water, oil, and yeast, and you make dough. How do you get it from dough to a loaf of bread? Oh yeah, you need fire. And so the good grain will be harvested, and the weeds, will make fire out of them. How do we know? That's not what cooks our bread. And what we shall be is a mystery. But in the midst of the mystery is God who loves us.